This is the primal scream of a dying regime.
Pray for our enemies, because we're going medieval on these people. You're just not got a free shot on all these networks lying about the people. The people have had a belly full of it. I know you don't like hearing that. I know you try to do everything in the world to stop that, but you're not going to stop it. It's going to happen.
And where do people like that go to share the big lie? MAGA media. I wish in my soul, I wish that any of these people had a conscience.
Ask yourself, what is my task and what is my purpose? If that answer is to save my country, this country will be saved.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
It's Monday, 27th July in the year of our Lord 2026. We're going to get, we had a little technical problem getting Natalie Winters up. She's got a story right now that is trending on Twitter. She's naming names about these journalists that have been involved with taking trips and supporting the Chinese Communist Party by name. When Natalie come on, we might have to get her up by phone like we got Poso this morning. We'll go through it. Also, Naomi Wolf. Really a brutal, incredible story in the Western Journal. Great job for the Western Journal team. Western Journal's got a story about Ma'am Donnie and the way they run elections in New York City already, including his election. A lot of doubts about the legitimacy of this entire thing. We'll get to that. Updates on John Thune. There's Matt Boyle's got at least a tweet out. I think he's working a piece. Matt's going to be with us tomorrow, and it's about Thune, I think, going back to the White House and saying, hey, look, we had a meeting with 20, we think, recalcitrant Republican senators or people that had doubts about the filibuster and about getting the Save America Act passed. And of those, 15 are no's. Well, let's, just like Natalie's putting the list out of the names of the journalists who are working and taking money from the Chinese Communist Party, taking free trips from them, we should put the names out of that on that. The Senate's scheduled to leave, I think pretty shortly, either the 4th or the 10th of August. These dates keep moving around because the House got out of town early. And we have a lot of work to do. Number one, and we know this from the, did we get her up yet? No. Okay, fine. My producer's going to give me a heads up when that happens. We know the House is out of town. I think the House is out of town for two reasons. Number one, if the Senate was to do something, they're not really want to be around to go into conference because there's no intensity, there's no urgency to pass the Save America Act. Establishment Republicans don't want to do that. They don't want to pass these bills. They think it goes back to all the consultants say you can't go back, you can't talk about the past, you can't talk about 20. Well, the past is currently in the future. When everybody, all these consultants say, oh, it's just additive, or you just got, the elections are about the future. Elections are about reality and how that plays out into the future. But what is happening now? What does that mean? What are the convergent forces? You have to explain that to people and how that trends. And so this situation about the 2020 election is about the here and now. Particularly it's about 2026. And I got to tell you, I think President Trump is starting to lean, I believe President Trump is starting to lean more our way. I think that he is seeing now how the Senate treats him like a lame duck. They treat him exactly like a lame duck. And I think there are questions out about recess appointments. There's question out now they have really any interest in passing the Save America Act. They want to break it up in pieces and put it into like a voluntary program. It's absolutely crazy. Anyway, I'm going to get a lot more to this, a lot more to drill down on. I want to get Natalie. I wanted her to start, and we're going to do the cold open at the top of the 6 o'clock hour. Natalie, the reason I love this story and the reason it's trending is you actually have the stones to name names. Just back up for a second. Walk us through what you're working on and how is it manifesting itself today in your story and particularly your tweet that's got, I don't know, not most, but a lot of the most prominent journalists in Washington, D.C. on it, ma'am.
Well, let's just say there are definitely more names coming. But today's story, Steve, I think why it resonates so much with everyone is because it actually names names. Imagine that. People who, I mean, in some cases for over a decade since first, meeting with basically their CCP handlers, in some cases, all expenses paid trips to go meet their handlers, have been consistently pumping propaganda. Not just that's pro Beijing, but we've now seen these narratives morph and become anti-Trump, right? There's an interesting nexus there. I encourage people to read the article, the full piece on Substack. You will recognize so many of those names. We like to make people famous here in the war room. So I would like to rattle off some of them. You have Ezra Klein, the co-founder of Vox and a New York Times columnist, Matthew Iglesias, the Vox co-founder, Ronald Brownstein, a CNN senior political analyst and Atlantic senior editor, Bradford Plumer, a New York Times reporter, Marjorie Miller, former AP vice president editor, Steve Clemons, former editor-at-large of The Hill, David Rode, of course, our favorite MS Now, Hatchet Man for all things 2020 election, Jonathan Alter, an MSNBC commentator, David Sweeney, former NPR managing editor, Daniel Gross, former Yahoo Finance columnist, Marilyn Giwax, former NPR, how's that, senior editor, Kathleen Devaney, former Newsweek and Wall Street Journal marketplace editor, Tom Olmsted, former U.S. News and World Report correspondent, Steve Chapman, former Chicago Tribune columnist and editorial writer, Bruce Stokes, former National Journal correspondent, Craig Gilbert, former Milwaukee Journal Sentinel Washington bureau chief, Tony Semerad, Salt Lake Tribune reporter, Shika Dalmia, columnist for The Week, Jonathan Broder, former Newsweek senior writer, Christy Kemp, a former Chicago Tribune associate managing editor, John Healy, the LA Times deputy editorial page editor, and Julian Peckett, a former foreign affairs reporter. And remember, Steve, we really honed in on David Rode last week, but these are the pay-for-play trips that we expose, part of the China United States Exchange Foundation, which is an ardent branch, I mean, frankly, of the CCP, the MSS, but they liken it to the United Front. So these are the kind of not just propaganda ops, but foreign influence to a T, really espionage at its core. But they would pay to take these journalists over to China, in some cases, private dinners in the States. But they were touring facilities belonging to companies like Huawei. There's pictures of them touring Chinese military bases. They're meeting with members of the Chinese Communist Party. Why I think this article is so really, I think, quite resonates with so many people is because I tracked basically all of the future reporting after these trips that these people have done, publishing articles like, quote, China bashing is for losers. I'm going to hard disagree with that one. People who say, and I quote, Americans should accept that large-scale manufacturing will never return to the United States. A lot of these people defended China's response to COVID, a lot of jokes about the PRC being superior to the United States. One even authored a now deleted column that was called The Case for Buying U.S. Olympic Outfits from China. There's a lot of interesting coincidences with some of these journalists, too. One of them is actually the husband of Wendy Sherman, who became Biden's deputy secretary of state and Biden's actually go-to person on China, if you can believe that. But Steve, I was actually working on another story that we'll publish tomorrow, and we're going to have around 24 more names of people who were affiliated with similar style trips. So I would say for as good as the PRC may be on cybersecurity and hacking the United States, you should tighten up some of your web pages because internal documents may have been leaked. But that aside, I think what is so interesting about this, and as someone who is so steeped in reading these, travel reports or these brochures of people who are traveling to China, it is so vast, and it has been going on, Steve, for decades in every industry, from congressmen to former generals to former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff to congressional staffers to former senators to current senators to lieutenant governors to mayors to agricultural officials. This is the tactic that the PRC has relied on for decades now. This stuff has been going on. One of these brochures that I got some of these names from was 2009. And when you look at the vast net of the names that these people have curated, these various PRC influence organizations, it's really depressing. It's like reading The Death of America, the eulogy kind of pre-written for it, right? 20 years ago, you see how the elites merged with China, how they really were given such an easy off-ramp to sell out. But I think the bright spot in this is that, one, even though these names were never exposed, I would personally argue that all of these people violated FARA requirements by never registering. They were taking money in some capacity from a PRC influence organization and never disclosed it, never filed any FARA form in any capacity. I was only able to obtain these from deleted, basically Chinese language pamphlets and like the Chinese side of reporting. But I would really encourage the Trump administration or Congress to subpoena the names, the broader names of all the journalists that were involved on these trips by going after the US-based lobbying firms that the Chinese Communist Party was hiring to connect them. And there was a whole process how they were selecting these journalists. They were choosing them based off how they could secure, quote, favorable coverage. They were literally looking for people that they could get, quote, preferential treatment from. So we need to go after the lobbying firms to get the full name, the list of names of people who were involved. And from there, I think you can really start to reverse engineer and just see the gravity of this racket, of this full-blown influence operation. Like I said, expanding media is one pillar of a multi-pillar, 12-plus pillar building of every corner of American society that they participated. I really would encourage, I feel like a broken clock, but I'll keep saying it. I'll keep, I actually had a reporter, one of my former White House colleagues, text me saying, great scoop from the White House. And I was like, the White House didn't give this to me. The War Room does it. We do the work ourselves, but it would be really nice to see the DOJ get these names.
Let's take it the other way. You're not seeing this from the White House. You're not seeing this from DOJ.
No.
This is a disgrace. You got to call it. You got to call it like it is. I just want to back up for 1 second, because you're the single best investigative reporter on everything. Does that say something? A young woman who has worked with the War Room since she was in prep, just getting out of prep school, or last year's a prep school all through college, is the #1 investigative reporter. Walk people through unrestricted warfare. The Chinese Communist Party thinks it will be a black mark on them if they have to go to kinetic against the foreign devils. They're prepared to go kinetic. They've got the venture capital industry helping to finance their weaponry. They got the oligarchs are trying to send them as many advanced ships as possible, but as a construct, they want to take us down without firing a shot. Unrestricted warfare and then the united front, because this is not just one or two random bad apples. This is a systemic process of how you turn America's media into a propaganda arm for the CCP, ma'am.
Yeah, right. It's like, don't give me that this is just a cultural exchange. I'm sure that would be the defense. But you're exactly right. Obviously, they don't prefer to go kinetic, but I think our Washington betters have sort of mistaken that or mistook that as they don't want to go kinetic, period. It's they don't want to go kinetic in lieu of basically taking over every other aspect and corner of society by any means necessary, to quote the American left. And when you look at what they're doing in this case, this is not even just pay for play journalism. This is information warfare. This is an information operation. And as someone who has tracked this for a very long time, you can see the evolution of the narratives. Back in the 2010s, they were very content just manufacturing the narrative, the contours of what China was, right? We should accept China as a friend. Their economic rise should be inspirational for us. We should have joint ventures and share factories with them. But now you see how they really forward deployed, right? All these sort of exploitable assets. And I'm using military terminology because that's the terminology that they're using. And now they're laying, narrative frameworks and groundworks and pushing back against digging into Chinese involvement in election hacking, the origins of COVID, right? You see how all these people are kind of placed and they're weaponized. Sometimes they don't even know. I'd argue a lot of these people most know what they're up to. But that's how they do it, right? It's this idea of strangling you with your own systems. They love that quote. It's all throughout so much of their military doctrine. And, it's one of the downsides. It's one of the upsides. We have a free and open society. The Chinese take advantage of that. And I would say, what's the point if what you get is MSNBC commentators who are literally shilling Chinese propaganda on air while they say that we're the ones destroying democracy. I think they're the traitors.
Natalie, hang on for 1 second. Natalie's going to stick with us for we're going to go through this list one more time. They are traitors. They're traitors to this country, and they're taking money. They've already taken money. These trips, they get greased up over there. They become advocates. They become the hoplites in the information war narrative against the American Republic. Their #1 target also is President Trump and the MAGA movement, because they know the MAGA movement is anti-communist and particularly anti-CCP. Short commercial break. We're going to return. Natalie G. Winters is with us.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Tomorrow, Natalie's going to join us. She's going to co-host with myself and Posobiec the tribute in in memoriam to Sam Faddis that we will do tomorrow between 5 and 7, the 5 and 7 hours. And we're just going to tie Sam's greatest hits here over the last 6 years to the current events, particularly with Zelensky and Netanyahu being in town, in election fraud being at the top of the agenda and this third down in the Senate. Those are the ones that Sam knew both from his CIA life and military life, and then what he did as a patriot for the MAGA movement. So we'll get it all done tomorrow. Natalie, I just want to make sure people understand this, because you did get some contacts say this thing's got, I don't know, 700,000 views on Twitter already. This is going to go mega viral very shortly. People have called you up and said, hey, really great. The White House gave you a scoop. Great going. This is what we call old-fashioned journalism. You just rolled your sleeves up because you've been on this story for years. You drilled down on this, particularly given the outrageous nature of what David wrote in MSNBC, because he's an agent of influence for the Chinese Communist Party, obviously. What they were saying to dismiss the Chinese Communist Party involvement in the 2020 election. You went back. I want to go through the names again. We're going to make them famous. I want to go through the names again, and what are their platforms, man?
Well, Steve, I would just add too, it's the micro, right, and the macro. It's their China reporting. It's the deliverables that they literally gave the Chinese Communist Party after they went to China. But then on the macro, it's people like David Rode and how they literally are agents of influence, helping the candidates preferred by the Chinese Communist Party, right, in the media, attacking those that they don't like. They are made in Beijing, like so many things, made in China. But you got Ezra Klein, the Vox co-founder and New York Times columnist, Matthew Iglesias, Vox co-founder, Ronald Brownstein, I think he's often our cold open, CNN senior political analyst, Atlantic senior editor, Bradford Plumer, New York Times, Marjorie Miller, AP, Steve Clemens, editor-at-large, The Hill, David Rode, MS Now, Jonathan Alter, MSNBC, David Sweeney, former NPR managing editor, Daniel Gross, Yahoo Finance, Marilyn Giwax, NPR senior editor, Kathleen Devaney, Newsweek and Wall Street Journal, Tom Omastad, U.S. News and World Report, Steve Chapman, Chicago Tribune, Bruce Stokes, National Journal, Craig Gilbert, Milwaukee Journal, Tony Semerad, Salt Lake Tribune, Sheikha Damia, The Week, Jonathan Broder, Newsweek, Christy Kemp, Chicago Tribune, John Healy, LA Times, Julian Peckett, Foreign Affairs.
Why is, I had Nick Cleveland Stout on today about the money that was given, the money's been given to the Israeli government is now giving to these influencers and trying to get coverage and giving to Salem Radio, and the discussion about who monitors this, these foreign agents, and what's the penalties, where should the description be. It begs the question, why does it take Natalie Winters to do this? Why is the Justice Department not all over this? It's so obvious that the Chinese Communist Party has so many running dogs in this country, and so many people work at powerful institutions in which the institutions kind of know what's going on and allow them to do it. Where's the institutional pushback on this, Natalie?
Well, it doesn't exist because they have co-opted the institutions, right? And that is by design, not just co-opted, but wholly taken over, right? It's not just that they're targeting, for example, one niche foreign or member of Congress who used to work on China issues. They are actively curating them while they are in office, right, by whining and dining them, taking on their trips. Their congressional program, you wonder why Congress hasn't done anything. It's not just that they take the members on the trips. They're literally having congressional staff delegations where they're literally finding like the legislator for this one individual who's on, HASC or dealing with armed forces. Or it is so detailed. It is so myopically constructed to literally literally reverse engineer the power dynamics of the United States of America. I mean, over in China, they're literally studying how we administer our government, finding the pinpoints, the Achilles heel, the choke points of the people that you need to go after. And from their perspective, they're really never held to account. And frankly, you talk about the Israeli influence operations too. It's all bad. And I think probably the entire audience feels this. You go on X now, you go on any social media, even the War Room comment section, it's not real people anymore. It's bots, it's influence operations, and it's not just random bots pushing random things. This is coordinated to try to dupe and deceive the American people into literally pushing the agenda of a foreign government. And these people are not disclosing it. If the Trump administration wants to do something, they should actually push legislation. They should, I mean, honestly, it's like a national emergency. You want to talk about national emergencies? It's that these influencers who are probably foreign to begin with, there's no regulatory mechanism. You don't understand, Steve, how vast and pervasive the foreign payments are to MAGA too. This is not just an establishment thing. That is more so coming from Israel, pushing us to go into the Iran war and stuff like that. But there's literally no enforcement. And Steve, you talk a lot about, right, what happened with the Tea Party movement being basically astroturfed by the Koch brothers, Americans for Prosperity, all that kind of stuff. What is going on with MAGA now with this pay-for-play stuff? I mean, people who I don't even understand how they ended up in the MAGA camp of influence and have any audience. They probably bought their followers. But it's the same thing that's going on. These people are being bought and paid for, and that's how you end up with a movement where, like, honestly, Steve, it is so frustrating. I thought we had new media in the White House, and that conservative new media was supposed to, like, prevent the next Iraq war, right? We weren't going to do the WMDs. We weren't going to lie. But in this case, we are as guilty as everyone else. And we're literally helping prop up not just lies that like maybe help American elites, but that are literally helping foreign governments and propping their agenda and literally leading to American men and women being killed in foreign battlefields abroad. So the Trump administration needs to do something about this. The China stuff is slightly different from that. This is more about curating Americans' perspective on China and frankly taking the country over from within. This is like a military approach, but it's all of the same coin. Absolutely. It's all of the same stripe, and we should make a precedent and go after the China one. It's an easy win.
No, but if you look at three vectors, the Gulf Emirates, Qatar being the lead, but the Saudis also, Israel, and now you look at the CCP, it's an onslaught to take our sovereignty. These are foreign actors that have their own interests as sovereign entities, and I have no problem with that. They're supposed to. That's what nationalism's about. However, what they're doing is putting unlimited amount of money in unrestricted warfare into the United States. Qatar is even worse because they're in back of one of the Muslim countries like Saudi, like Pakistan, like Turkey. They're in back of the invasion of the Islamic invasion of this country. But these entities are putting massive amounts of money at work to try to get the American people to do their bidding, essentially. Whether it's this Middle East war or in the CCP's case, to basically allow an existential threat to the United States and its citizens, the most significant outside the border threat, to be treated like it's like a strategic partner or just it's a competitor, a peer competitor, right? And so you get Jensen Huang can sit there and with a straight face on major media every week, be an agent of influence for the Chinese Communist Party by talking about how, we have to develop their chip business because if we don't, they're going to develop their own, so we need to sell them the highest quality chips possible. It's all bald-faced lies to destroy the company. Now, what are we going to see? You're taking the story even further tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to get another big hit from you. What is it about?
Well, Steve, I would also just real quick add on the tech bros, the only time I've seen them take a supposed Chinese influence op seriously is when it comes to data centers, right? All of a sudden, any manufacturer consent or disagreement there, that can be, created by the Chinese Communist Party. 100%. or the chips, right? Yeah. Right. But no, tomorrow 100%. I got a list of a dozen or so more names, some of them actually coming from internally leaked documents from another United Front
organization. I'll give you one name just for fun. How about David Ignatius? Haven't we been lectured by him enough on the War Room? Well, it turns out he went to China with a communist influence group. And this one, actually, Steve, I'll tease you with this, has testimonials from multiple journalists from when they came back talking about how much they love China now, and by orders of magnitude of in the hundreds, how much the trip where they were exposed to Chinese military leaders and Communist Party officials, how much it changed their perspective of China and made them really like it.
David Ignatius, who's the lead reporter and lead columnist on this very topic for the Washington Post, or as Ben Harnwell calls it, the Langley Bugle, where he's the head of the comms department for the CIA. That's pretty shocking. Natalie, where can people go right now on your social media to get all this? Where they go to the Substack to get the article? Where they go to social media to see your Natalie Winters naming names on Twitter today? Where they go?
We love making people famous in the War Room. You can go to Natalie G. Winters on X, read the thread, and then Substack is nataliegwinters.substack.com. You can subscribe for free and see all the articles, read the stuff, and leave some negative comments on these people who are traitors on their social media and encourage the DOJ to do something. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Natalie, I think we're going to have to get you a food taster. Got to be very careful going forward. you're
I'm not suicidal. How about that?
No, Natalie's having a great time. Not suicidal. Thank you, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks, sir.
Natalie G. Winters. Wow. That's good old-fashioned journalism right there. That's investigative reporting. They're not going to like it. They're not going to like being exposed. Just remember, every day they're hitting President Trump with something because their target is Trump, Trumpism, MAGA. Birch Gold. Now, with the turbulence in the markets, maybe I'll talk about Elon's stock tomorrow. I'm duly note that. Maybe I'll do that in 6 o'clock hour. Birchgold.com/Bannon. Is that good, Mo? Does it work? Mo gives me stink eye all the time when I get it wrong. /Bannon. End of the dollar empire. 8 free installments, so you can go online right now at Birch and get it. You can talk to Philip Patrick and the team why gold has been a hedge for thousands and thousands of years, and what it means for your portfolio today, particularly as maybe you think about retirement. Birchgold.com/Bannon. End of the dollar empire. Check it out today.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, I want you to take advantage of this, of both these offers. Jim Rickards has got strategic intelligence. Go to rickardsintel.com. That's rickardsintel.com. Can we put that up on the screen? And also Mo and Grace and Elizabeth, if you can push it out. rickardsintel.com is a special landing page. You get his flagship newsletter, Strategic Intelligence. You get it for $17.76. That's in honor of the 250th birthday of the birth of the greatest nation on earth. It's not when we got our independence, it's when we declared our independence, 1776. And if you don't love it, after one quarter and getting a number of the newsletters, you can sit there and go, Jim, I don't love it. Can I get my money back? He will reimburse you your $17.76. So it's completely no risk. And you get the predictive analytics that drives all these insights for strategic intelligence. So do it today. Check it out. It's virtually a risk-free offer. I guess it is a risk-free offer because you reimburse you, right? Also, Home Title Lock. Home Title Lock has got this amazing HomeTitleLock.com promo code Steve. You get a free title history report and 14-day free trial on their $1 million triple lock protection. So you get a 14-day free, the history report for you, for your title, and a 14-day trial of $1 million triple lock protection. So this is also risk-free. HomeTitleLock.com, promo code Steve. Talk to Natalie Dominguez and the team and do it today. Particularly with AI and cyber breaking out of containment. More about that in the 6 o'clock hour. Home Title Lock. Naomi Wolf. 2, one, ma'am, Donnie, that you were the first to warn people about, and there's major issues now about his election that has to be addressed, and also Dr. Fauci, and we'll get to him in a moment. First off, the Western Journal, and those guys really, it's a great news site. I love it. they've got a pretty shocking article by, I guess what this woman explained, which she's an expert in free and fair voting in New York City and runs a number of citizens groups. What is she saying about this? Because you've warned us too, but now there are multiple data points coming up. Did Mamdani really win the mayoral race in New York City?
Yeah, so there are now 3 different credible sources with 3 different data sets, all converging and reaching the conclusion that there is no way to say that Mamdani won, that there has to be an investigation, there has to be a new election. This election cannot be considered valid. So Marley Hornick of Real America Vote and New York Citizens Audit, she's an election integrity expert. She has found in her research and her organization's research of the voting rolls, 1 million of 2.2 million voters, she's found, having reviewed 1 million votes, that 7% were non-existent people. They were fake people. 6% had fake social security numbers, and 10% did not live in New York. And this amounts to more than the margin of victory. So you can't, as she put it very scrupulously in an interview she did with Sid Rosenberg, she can't say that Mamdani won because there's no evidence that he won. This correlates with the vast numbers of problematic or invalid ballots that I've found in my research that I've been, as you know, screaming about, and thank you for giving me a platform. 100,000 plus blank ballots on the Board of Elections website in the primary, this much vaunted primary. And again, in some of those precincts or districts, that's 1 in 10 votes is blank. Why over 100,000 blank ballots? And it also, what Ms. Hornick is documenting also aligns with what we found. Brian O'Shea, my husband, an investigator, and I went to vote in Brooklyn. We're not registered in New York City at all. We are registered upstate. And they let me almost vote. And they actually handed Brian a form called a referral slip. And the back of it was blank. It was a form that was ready to be filled in. It had been in use since 2013. You could literally Xerox it as many times as you want. And that allowed, and he gave a fake name and a fake address, and they just waved him right through. So, multiply that at scale. And this in turn is correlating with another data set and another credible group of investigators. And this is Lulu Freistat of smartelections.us and the attorney Jimmy Wagner, whom you all should know because he founded the Donald J. Trump Kings County Republican Club in deepest, bluest Brooklyn, and helped try to launch a number of candidates, young Republican candidates, in the city council and mayoral race last November. Well, there's in the primary, the one that all these news outlets have claimed had all of these DSA victories and these communists have won. That primary is still being counted. It's not certified yet. It's still being counted. And one of the races, Bernard Weselberg, the action is Weselberg versus Collar in Brooklyn's 22nd Senate District. The votes were so close that Lulu Freistat and Jimmy Wagner asked Judge Sweeney to recount, basically to verify the vote. And in the process of recounting, Lulu Freistat documented with pictures that I showed you and shared with your audience with the posse, shocking breaches of security, like mind-blowing, explosive breaches of security at the cage where the New York City's primary votes are counted, 6-foot wide gaps where people can saunter in and out, boxes of paper underneath the table where people are counting. In defiance of the court order that Judge Sweeney issued, the counters of the ballots aren't letting observers see the ballots. He said you have to be 4 feet from the counting. They put a table 4 feet, as I think I shared with you all, and then did the counting 15 feet away. But since I last shared that shocking information with all of you, there's even more shocking information in that race. There are Xeroxed ballots mixed in with actual ballots from 3 different districts, confirmed. Printouts of digital ballots are being mixed in with real ballots. And the number of Xeroxed ballots in that race is enough to change the outcome of that race. Lastly, there are more votes than voters, and this confirms in a different way what Ms. Hornick found, that the Board of Elections is basically generating, well, I shouldn't attribute that to them, we don't know, but somehow magically, when the Board of Elections is counting, there are more votes out of thin air than there are voters. Lastly, I asked I asked Lily Freisdack, because I saw it in the photograph. She sneaked out. You're not allowed to take pictures. Are there printers in the cage? Because I saw printers. And she said, yes, there are 4 printers in the cage. And again, there are boxes of paper under the table, lining the kind of shelving. I described to you all that the chain link fence that creates the cage is actually at Potemkin Village, because it's on wheels and you could just roll the panels out. It's complete fakery. But you can basically print up, they appear to be printing up, someone is printing up fake ballots, and enough to change this one race. So if one race could be changed with checking that only real ballots are being counted instead of fake ballots that are being Xeroxed somehow, then it really is a systemic problem. We need to assume that none of these races are legitimate. We can't know that they're legitimate with this level of fraud and malfeasance documented now from 3 different credible sources. And we have to assume that Mamdani, we can't say he won. We can't say that my wonderful candidate, Athena Clark, lost. There's no evidence because there's so much fraud. We can't say that these 3 DSA communists that the legacy media is so ecstatic about, that they won. One of them, Daria Lisa Chevalier, her margin is so narrow that all of these blank ballots could bring it within the thin margin that requires an audit, a hand count audit. So you've got abundant documentation now of systemic, problems is too frail a word, systemic malfeasance, systemic, fraud. There's no other way to put it. Mishandling of security, mishandling of vote, conjuring of votes. To say that.
Hang on, I want to take a minute to go through this to make sure the audience understands it. And let me just ramble for a second. One of the reasons I believe, and I actually recommended to her and her team, and I think her team is among the best, that's Elise Stefanik, about why in this cycle it probably would be a very difficult task to beat an incumbent governor in New York, because in New York City, they've got a machine that's going to print as many votes as they need. And this is one of the reasons, no matter the last in 24, these huge turnouts for Trump in the city with a canvas of amazing, Hispanics, African Americans, all the melting pot that New York City looks like turning out for MAGA, that it doesn't make a difference. They've got it. Now, we've kind of got 2 things. We have Mandami's race in 25, which is off cycle. The New York mayor's race is kind of like the Virginia governor's race. It's off cycle. Now we're in cycle with these primaries. So I just want to go back, because if memory serves me correctly, Cuomo was in this race. Why would the established Democratic machine that has a reputation of being able to kind of, as you know, have elections turn out their way, particularly against Republicans, why would they allow Mamdani and these who they think are radicals with this DSA and the Working Families Party, why would they allow them to steal this thing, which you're saying, hey, it still can't be certified? In fact, there's enough discrepancies, as proven by Mary Hornick and others in the 25 race, that it's outside the margin of error for victory. and should go back. We got about a minute. If you get responsible, I'll hold you through the break because I think the audience, we need to drill down this. Why were the Democratic machines so powerful? The Tammany Hall machine of New York City, why would they just allow Mamdani to steal the election from them?
I truly don't understand it. And you're right to ask because, as I've mentioned here before, Mamdani was allowed to appear on the ballot twice and Andrew Cuomo wasn't. And as a result, I feel strongly, and I've got a signed affidavit from a poll worker who testified that they were told to feed overvotes into the machine. I feel strongly that people voting twice for Mamdani was a big part of the fake victory, fake alleged victory.
Hold it. Time out. You've got an affidavit signed that said they were feeding the overvote back in the machine for Mamdani?
A poll worker has given his eyewitness account of, his name is William Egdorf, a Brooklyn poll worker, of how he was trained and the trainer told them instead of discarding votes that have Mamdani or anyone, because a number of people appeared twice, selected twice, which the rules say you're supposed to do generally, they're supposed to feed them into the machine, and they were assured that the machine would spit it out. And of course, I work with developers all day long. Yes. It's the easiest thing in the world to have the algorithm read an overvote twice if there are two votes.
Hang on 1 second. We're gonna hang on and drill down on this. Is Mamdani legitimate? And what about these other DSA candidates in the primaries this year? Short commercial break. Back in the warm in a moment.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Zelensky and Netanyahu are both in town tomorrow. They're going to be here officially for Senator Lindsey Graham's memorial service. They are going to meet with the president. We don't know the times, the details, but we'll get those. Turbulence continues in the Middle East. Now the war's expanded to Christian Science Monitor has a pretty detailed report on the Houthis. This doubles down on the great report from Gateway Pundit last week. We had the writer on. Also, there's I guess there's now a fact that the Ukrainians fired on a Persian vessel, and I believe the Persian vessel's taking drones to Russia, not Russia weapons to Persia. Anyway, we're going to get into all of that, but it means that turbulence is with us and going to stay with us. Birch Gold, take your phone out, text Bannon, BANNON 989898. You get Philip Patrick and the team, direct connections with them. They can walk you through everything, particularly how you can roll over into a gold IRA or physical gold, but you roll a gold IRA, tax deferred if it comes from an IRA, 401k, whatever. Talk to them about the details. They'll make it all clear to you. So Naomi Wolf, I want to break down. I want to put aside just for a second a pin in Mamdani in the 25. I want to go to these primaries because the media and the Democratic establishment was in shock that the three radical DSA members won. In fact, they're so radical. I have been advising, or I shouldn't say advising, arguing when they win in November, because they will win, they shouldn't be seated. You're saying now, as you go into the official records, I guess, of the city, the certification still has not been signed by the Board of Elections. Or the Clerk of Elections? Is that correct? I
can't say that. Jimmy Wagner says that are you talking about the 2025 election? Or are you talking about the primary?
No, I'm talking the primary.
They're still counting the primary votes. I mean, as a journalist, this is why I'm so upset at my fellow journalists. The national media, from Politico to The Hill to the New York Times, was cheering and announcing the winners the night the polls closed in June, I think June 23rd of this year, the primary in New York. And again, heralding as this giant wave of change, these three truly communist candidates. And they're still counting the vote to this day. To this day, the Board of Elections is still counting the vote. They're still counting absentee ballots, military ballots. The last I checked in, they haven't finished counting the votes. So for sure, I can tell you that the primaries, all of those primary races are not certified, because as of now, as I understand it, they're still counting the votes. There's another anomaly, which is that the official tally, and I don't mean to go back unnecessarily, but just to be clear, the official tally that's on the Board of Elections website of the Mamdani alleged victory and the city council members' alleged victories is still not signed.
So how long, why are they still counting? Why are they still counting in New York City? And when do they have to print the ballots for November? Why are they still counting? Do you know?
Well, it is normal. I mean, again, this is why I was tearing my hair out when the press was kind of saying it's over, it's over. It is normal to count as absentee ballots come in, as overseas ballots come in. Sorry, my dog has lots of feelings. As military ballots come in, you know, those do take a while. But you also have to ask what's really going on, because I was in court when Judge Sweeney said, like 2 weeks ago, when will you be done, to the Board of Elections lawyer? And she said by July 15th, and now it's July 27th. And they, you know, I think they finished counting that race like yesterday. So why does it take weeks? Well, I think that's where we really need federal investigations. I think the FBI should be asking that question, because why are there printers, you know, in a room where printed fake ballots are being mixed in with real ballots? You know, what is happening in those weeks after Election Day, which was more than a month ago, right, for this primary? That was June 23rd. It's now July 27th. What is taking so long? And if you could see, again, looking at those photographs that Lulu Freistat managed to sneak out of there, there are a lot of questions, because you've got, for instance, a table full of people, workers, who have nothing to do with counting the vote. They have their phones with them, which is a huge breach of security. And they're just sitting there on their phones, while at another table, the people tasked with counting the vote are allegedly counting, not letting any of the observers close enough to see, against the court order. Well, the people on their phones could be sending summaries to someone who's sending back information. Well, we need more in this district. We need more in this district. Come up with this many. And why are there boxes? I couldn't get over this. Boxes of paper from a paper distributor, you know, under the table with all of these printers there. And, you know, lastly, I actually intercepted workers who were leaving the Winthrop Avenue in Brooklyn polling place, where both Brian and I had tried to vote, and he was waved through, and I didn't want to commit a crime, so I stopped. But they, 2 days after the election, Steve, 2 days, like June 25th, 2 workers were carrying the booths, the voting booths, out to a truck, an unmarked truck, except that it's in Queens. And in the back, there were either voting machines or printers wrapped in plastic. And I saw, and have this on video, I have all of this on video, that in some of the voting booths, there were signs saying some ballots will have 2 pages. Some ballots will have 2 pages. Well, you know, there was no Board of Elections official with them. Brooklyn ballots are, you know, the equipment's going to Queens. Why? Who knows? It was a random private company. And there was no chain of custody for 2 days that you could see. There was no chain of custody physically, you know, for this equipment moving out. And that's what you see in the photographs of the cage as well. Bags, and I sent these to you guys, bags that are like 4 feet across with blank ballots just open, as Jimmy Wagner said, left overnight with no chain of custody.
Hang on 1 second. We're taking a short break. Naomi's going to stick with us. We're going to drill down one more time as what is Marley Hornick looking for as a resolution here on Mom Donnie. Also, we're going to drill down on Tony Fauci, the diaries of Dr. Anthony Fauci, next in the War Room.